The acrid smoke of war clung to Lieutenant Alina Saris's nostrils as she surveyed the ruins of what had once been Kestrel City. The skeletal remains of towers jutted against a blood-red sky, their twisted frames like reaching fingers grasping for salvation. 10 years of interplanetary conflict had reduced this once thriving border metropolis to rubble and memories. Saris found herself drawn to these broken places. There was honesty in ruins that you couldn't find in military bunkers with their artificial lighting and recycled air. Saris adjusted her optical enhancement gear, scanning the jagged horizon. Her unit was spread in tactical formation behind her 7 of the military's finest trackers. Each wore the specialized carbon mesh uniforms of the Coalition's Hunter Division dark gray with subtle red insignia that marked them as elite killers. They moved like phantoms through the desolation, leaving barely a footprint in the red dust. "Sector 9, clear, Lieutenant," came the crisp voice of Corso through her neural comms. Unlike the others, Corso had been with her since the beginning, since the first border breach 10 years ago, when the pale invaders arrived without warning or mercy. "Acknowledged." Saris replied, her voice a controlled monotone that betrayed none of the unease she felt. Intelligence had reported increased enemy movement in this quadrant. The shield's faceless proxy soldiers with bone-white skin and reflective visors had been spotted by surveillance drones. But it wasn't the shields that concerned command. It was their commander, the elusive architect of countless Coalition defeats. Saris had never seen the enemy commander, but she had tracked their handiwork across a dozen worlds. Brilliant tactics, impeccable timing, always one step ahead of Coalition forces. In the briefing room, the commander was represented by a holographic question mark, a shadow without form or identity. But Saris knew better. In her mind, she had constructed an image of calculated malice, a being of cold intelligence orchestrating death from afar. Her comm unit pulsed with an incoming priority message. Captain Trevine's stern face materialized in her field of vision. "Lieutenant, new intelligence. Our scanners detected an anomalous vessel entering atmosphere 6 hours ago. Crash coordinates transmitted to your unit. Command believes it contains a high-value target, possibly pale-skin command staff. Your new orders: locate, identify, and eliminate. No prisoners, no exceptions." The message ended as abruptly as it had begun. Saris's heartbeat quickened despite her years of conditioning. A command officer. Perhaps even the commander. After a decade of chasing shadows and proxies, they might finally confront the mastermind. "Team," she spoke into the neural link. "New coordinates incoming. Priority Alpha. Full stealth protocol." The 7 acknowledgement lights blinked green in her peripheral vision. Within moments, they had adjusted course, moving northwest toward the heart of the ruined city's industrial sector. Saris led them through collapsed buildings and across makeshift bridges, spanning chasms that had once been roadways. The devastation was total, here evidence of orbital bombardment from the early years of the war, when both sides still had ships to spare. As darkness descended, they set up a temporary outpost in the hollowed remnants of what might have been a government facility. The walls were thick enough to shield their thermal signatures, though Saris doubted there were many living beings left to notice their presence. The civilian population had evacuated or perished years ago, leaving only scavengers, military units, and enemy combatants to fight over the carcass of civilization. Miko, their intelligence specialist, projected a holographic map, showing their target zone illuminated in red. "Preliminary scans suggest the vessel came down here," she said, pointing to a jagged ravine. "Minimal heat signature, which either means good shielding or they've gone cold." "Or they've moved on," added Corso, his weathered face grim in the blue light of the projection. Saris studied the topography. "The ravine provides natural cover. If I were them, I'd stay put and wait for extraction." She zoomed in on the map. "We'll approach from these 3 vectors. Miko, you, and Len take the south entrance. Corso and Vale West Ridge. The rest of you with me from the north. Tight formation, silent approach. If this truly is command staff, expect sophisticated countermeasures and possible deadman protocols. She looked at the faces of her team-hardened veterans who had survived countless missions under her leadership. Not one had questioned the kill order. Not one had suggested that capturing such a high-value target might yield intelligence worth more than a corpse. This was what the war had done to them all, reduced complex ethical calculations to binary decisions of kill or be killed. "Questions?" she asked, knowing there would be none. The team dispersed to check equipment and prepare. Saris found herself alone, staring at the projected image of the crash site. Something didn't feel right. Enemy vessels rarely ventured this close to coalition strongholds, especially not carrying valuable personnel. It felt too convenient, too perfect a scenario. But questioning intelligence reports wasn't her job. Finding and eliminating threats was. She ran her fingers along the seam of her tactical vest, feeling the reassuring weight of her sidearm and the specialized tracking devices that had earned her reputation as the coalition's most lethal hunter. In 10 years, she had never failed a mission, never lost a target. Perfect kill record across 17 planetary systems. Yet lately, doubt had crept into her mind like a persistent virus. What had the war accomplished beyond mutual devastation? The coalition claimed they fought for humanity's survival against an incomprehensible alien threat. But as years passed and billions died, the original causes seemed lost in the machinery of perpetual conflict. Saris pushed such thoughts away. Philosophical meanderings were a luxury she couldn't afford. She retrieved her tactical rifle from its case and methodically checked each component, finding comfort in the ritual. Tomorrow they would find the crash site. Tomorrow they would complete their mission. And perhaps tomorrow the faceless enemy would finally have a face. The world of night in the ruins turned everything into shadow. Saris's squad moved like water through the darkness, their thermal dampening gear rendering them nearly invisible. By the time they reached the ravine's edge, the twin moons had risen, casting an eerie blue glow across the landscape. Below, nestled between jagged rock formations, lay their target. It wasn't what any of them had expected. Instead of a transport vessel or escape pod, they found what appeared to be a sophisticated drone, larger than standard surveillance models, its sleek hull scorched from atmospheric entry, but largely intact. It hovered inches above the ground power systems, clearly still functioning. A soft blue light pulsed from recessed panels along its side. "Confirm visual," Saris whispered into her comm. Confirmed came the responses from the other teams. No signs of crew or passengers. Appears to be unmanned tech. Saris frowned. Command had been explicit that this contained a high-value organic target. Either intelligence was wrong or... "Scan for concealment tech," she ordered. "Full spectrum." As Miko deployed advanced scanning equipment, Saris observed the drone with growing unease. Its design was unlike anything in the Coalition database. More elegant with curves where Coalition tech favored harsh angles. There was something almost beautiful about it, despite its ominous presence. "Lieutenant," Miko's voice crackled through the calm tension evident. "I'm detecting a biomodule. Central compartment. Life signs present but weak. Definitely not one of the pale shields." "Elaborate," Saris demanded. "Unknown biology. Not human baseline, not pale skin standard. Something different." Before Saris could issue further orders, the drone suddenly emitted a high-pitched whine. Panels along its hull retracted, revealing defensive mechanisms. "Take cover," she shouted, diving behind a boulder as energy pulses lanced through the air, where she had stood moments before. The ravine erupted in chaos. Her team returned fire, their weapons blue tracers, illuminating the night. The drone moved with astonishing speed, adaptive camouflage rendering it a blur of shifting patterns. It was heading toward the western ridge, toward Corso and Vale. "Corso incoming!" Saris warned, already racing along the ravine's edge to intercept. She heard the sharp report of Corso's rifle, followed by Vale's tactical grenades detonating in sequence. The drone faltered, its levitation systems damaged. It listed to one side, smoke pouring from a ruptured panel. Saris seized the opportunity. With practiced precision, she fired a specialized EMP round directly into what appeared to be the drone's main power coupling. The effect was immediate. The craft dropped like a stone, crashing into the ravine floor, with a deafening impact that sent dust and debris billowing upward. "Approach with caution," she ordered, descending the steep incline with her rifle raised. "Miko, confirm neutralization." "Confirming. All systems inactive. But the biomodule is still registering life signs, faint but present." They converged on the fallen drone from three directions, weapons trained on its motionless form. Up close, Saris could see intricate patterns etched into its hull, not decorative, but functional, channeling energy in ways Coalition science had yet to master. The pulsing blue light had dimmed to a faint glow, concentrated around what must be the biomodule. "Cover me," Saris instructed, stepping forward. Something compelled her to investigate personally, though protocol dictated they should simply destroy the craft from a distance. She found what appeared to be an access panel and cautiously placed her hand against it. To her surprise, it responded to her touch, sliding open with a soft hiss. Inside, nested within a cushioned chamber filled with translucent fluid, lay a humanoid figure. Female, slight build, and most strikingly blue skin, not the stark white of the shields, but a deep, cerulean hue that seemed to shimmer even in the dim light. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow. A laceration across her abdomen leaked a silvery substance into the surrounding fluid. Saris's first impulse was to raise her weapon. Orders were clear: eliminate all enemy combatants. This was clearly an alien operative, perhaps even the command staff they sought. One clean shot would complete the mission. Yet she hesitated, transfixed by the alien's face. There was something strangely familiar about her features, a nagging sense of recognition that Saris couldn't place. More disconcerting was the absence of fear or hatred Saris expected to feel. Instead, she experienced an inexplicable urge to protect. Lieutenant Corso's voice broke through her reverie. "Awaiting orders." Saris made a decision that would alter everything. "She's wounded, not threatening. We're bringing her in." Sir, Corso's surprise was evident. "Standing orders are—" "I know what the orders are, Sergeant," Saris interrupted. "But this is a potential intelligence goldmine. Command will want her alive for questioning." The lie came easily, though she wasn't entirely sure why she felt compelled to offer it. Without waiting for further discussion, Saris reached into the chamber and carefully lifted the blue woman from her suspension fluid. She was lighter than expected, her body temperature cool against Saris's arms. The woman's eyes fluttered, but remained closed, her breathing labored. "Miko, collect all data from the drone systems. Corso, rig it for demolition. We leave no evidence." As her team efficiently carried out their tasks, Saris stood holding the alien woman, acutely aware that for the first time in her career, she was defying a direct order. She should feel remorse, conflict, doubt. Instead, carrying this unknown enemy through the ravine, she experienced only a profound certainty that she was doing exactly what she was meant to do. The journey back to base was tense, conducted in near silence as they moved through the ruins with their unusual cargo. Saris carried the alien herself, refusing offers from the others to share the burden. By dawn, they had reached the Coalition outpost on the outskirts of the former city, a retrofitted mining facility burrowed into a mountainside, impervious to orbital bombardment. Captain Trevane met them at the secure entrance, his expression shifting from anticipation to confusion as he registered what, or rather who, Saris carried. "Lieutenant, explain," he demanded, blocking their path. "High-value prisoner, sir," Saris reported with a confidence she didn't entirely feel. "Found in an advanced stealth drone. Unknown species, not the standard enemy we usually encounter. Believed to be command staff, based on the sophistication of her transport and protective systems." Trevine's eyes narrowed. "Orders were explicit, no prisoners." "With respect, sir, this is unprecedented. We've never captured a living officer of this classification before. The intelligence value outweighs standard protocol. Saris met his gaze steadily. I take full responsibility. A tense moment passed before Trevine stepped aside. Secure her in medical isolation. Triple guard. No one enters without my authorization. And Lieutenant, his voice hardened. This deviation better yield results or it's your commission. Understood, sir. As they proceeded through the facility's stark corridors, Saris felt the weight of questioning stares. Word traveled fast in an enclosed military installation. By nightfall, everyone would know about the blue alien and Saris's uncharacteristic decision to spare her. The medical isolation wing was a sterile chamber designed to contain biohazards and perform examinations on recovered enemy technology, or in rare cases, enemy remains. Dr. Kavir, the outpost's senior xenobiologist, was already waiting alerted by Trevine's priority message. Place her on the examination table. He instructed, his tone clinical as he prepared scanning equipment. What do we know about her physiology? Nothing, Saris admitted gently, laying the alien down. I've never seen her species before. Dr. Kavir adjusted his instruments, dark eyes, thoughtful behind protective goggles. Fascinating. Humanoid structure but clearly non-human derivation. The blue pigmentation appears to be cellular, not cosmetic. He pressed a scanner against the woman's wounded abdomen. She's lost significant fluid, appears to function like blood, but with metallic properties. I'll need to synthesize a replacement based on samples. Will she survive? Saris asked, surprised by the intensity of her concern. Dr. Kavir glanced up, expression unreadable. If we can stop the hemorrhaging and replace lost fluids, possibly. But, Lieutenant, I should remind you that keeping enemy combatants alive is not our standard procedure, especially unfamiliar species with unknown biological capabilities. Your concern is noted, Doctor, but your orders are to stabilize and maintain. Captain Trevine expects a viable subject for interrogation. Again, the lies came easily, though Saris knew that Trevine had given no such instruction. As the medical team worked to stabilize the alien, Saris retreated to a monitoring station outside the isolation chamber. Through reinforced glass, she watched as they connected the woman to life support systems, adapting them as best they could to her unknown biology. The alien remained unconscious, her chest rising and falling in shallow rhythm. Lieutenant Saris. A quiet voice drew her attention. Archivist Rel stood nearby, datapad in hand, his elderly frame stooped from decades hunched over monitors and records. As the outpost's chief data analyst, he had access to nearly every report filed in the past decade. Archivist, she acknowledged with a respectful nod. Rel was one of the few non-combat personnel she genuinely respected, a man who sought patterns and truth where others saw only chaos and enemies. I was informed of your unusual acquisition, he said, eyes darting to the isolation chamber. I've taken the liberty of initiating a full cross-reference through all Coalition databases. If this species has been encountered before, we'll find the record. Thank you, Saris said, then added impulsively, what do you make of her, Archivist? Your honest assessment. Rel studied the alien through the glass, his weathered face thoughtful. In 10 years of cataloging enemy encounters, I've never seen this phenotype. Not even a mention in theoretical xenobiological profiles. He turned to Saris, lowering his voice. Which raises the question, what else might we not know about this war? Before Saris could respond, her neural comm activated. Lieutenant, report to command immediately. Trevine's tone brooked no argument. Stay with her, Saris told Rel, though she had no authority to issue such an order. Let me know if her condition changes. The command center occupied the deepest level of the facility, a reinforced bunker that housed communications arrays, tactical planning systems, and enough processing power to coordinate military operations across the sector. Captain Trevine stood before the central holo display, surrounded by his senior staff. The tension in the room was palpable. Lieutenant, He began without preamble. Specialist Miko has completed preliminary analysis of the data recovered from the alien drone. I believe you should see this. The holodisplay shifted, showing schematics and tactical data. Saris recognized them immediately. They were her own mission plans, deployment strategies, and infiltration routes from the past 6 months. Every operation she had led was detailed with precision. The drone was tracking you specifically, Lieutenant. Trevine said, eyes hard. Not randomly encountered, targeted. Which means your blue friend isn't just any enemy operative. She was hunting you. Saris felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. That's not possible. How would they even know who I am? Excellent question. Trevine gestured, and the display changed to show surveillance footage recovered from the drone. Multiple angles of Saris and her team captured during various missions. Close-up images of her face, sometimes taken from impossible vantage points. It seems you've made quite an impression on the enemy, enough that they dedicated significant resources to tracking your movements. Saris stared at the images, unsettled by the implications. Sir, if they were tracking me to assassinate, they had hundreds of opportunities. This doesn't make sense. Unless assassination wasn't the objective, offered Commander Vatz, the facility's intelligence officer. Perhaps they were studying you, learning your tactics, or using you to lead them to valuable targets. The suggestion hung in the air, heavy with accusation. If true, it meant Saris had unwittingly compromised countless operations. I want answers, Trevine said flatly. The moment that alien wakes up, I want to know why she was following you, what she knows about our operations, and then I want her terminated in accordance with standing orders. He stepped closer to Saris. Are we clear, Lieutenant? Crystal, sir, Saris replied, face impassive despite the turmoil within. She was being used as bait, or worse, an unwitting traitor, and the woman she had inexplicably saved might hold the answers. Dismissed from command, Saris returned to her sparse quarters. Standard military efficiency, a cot, a small desk, storage for personal effects, what few she had accumulated in 10 years of constant deployment. She removed her tactical gear methodically, each piece placed exactly where regulations dictated. The ritual usually centered her, but today her mind refused to quiet. Why had she saved the alien orders? Were absolute all enemy combatants eliminated on sight? Especially high-value targets. Especially unusual species that might pose unique threats. Yet, when the moment came to pull the trigger, something had stopped her. Something beyond rational thought. Saris accessed her personal terminal and pulled up her service record. Spotless. Perfect mission completion rate. Highest kill efficiency in the Coalition's Hunter Division. Medal of Valor awarded 3 times for exceptional bravery and tactical brilliance in the face of overwhelming enemy forces. Overwhelming forces she had somehow always survived. A memory surfaced 3 years ago, a stealth insertion gone wrong. Her team pinned down by enemy fire from all directions. No extraction possible. She had made a desperate run across open ground to reach a fallen comrade fully expecting to die. Dozens of energy blasts had torn through the air around her, and somehow impossibly missed. At the time, she had attributed it to adrenaline luck, divine intervention. Now she wondered. Her terminal chimed with an incoming message. Archivist Rel, text only, medical isolation, urgent. Saris arrived at the isolation chamber to find Dr. Kavir bent over monitors, his face drawn with concentration. The alien woman lay motionless on the table, her blue skin ashen life support equipment beeping in rhythmic warning. What's happened? Saris demanded. Her condition is deteriorating, Dr. Kavir explained without looking up. The fluid replacement isn't taking hold. Her cellular structure is extraordinary, unlike anything I've encountered. I lack the knowledge to effectively treat her. Archivist Rel stood in the corner, clutching his datapad like a shield. Lieutenant, while you were in command, I took the liberty of analyzing the drone's navigation logs. There's something you should know. Saris glanced between the failing alien and the elderly archivist. Tell me, the drone's flight path over the past year, it correlates exactly with your deployment record. Rel manipulated his datapad, projecting a map showing two overlapping trajectories. Wherever you went, this drone followed. Not just recently, consistently. For at least 12 months. Trevine already informed me, Sarah said, impatience edging her voice. The enemy was tracking me. No, Rel corrected quietly. You're not understanding. The drone wasn't just following you. It was positioning itself between you and potential threats. Intercepting, redirecting, protecting. Sarah stared at him. That's absurd. Why would an enemy operative protect me? I don't know, Rel admitted. But there's more. He hesitated, seeming to choose his words carefully. I've been reviewing your mission history, Lieutenant. Your remarkable survival rate. The statistical improbabilities. Did you know that in your 10 years of service, you've never sustained a serious injury, despite engaging in combat situations where casualty rates for others exceeded 70%? I'm good at my job, Sarah said defensively. And lucky. Perhaps. Or perhaps there's another explanation. Rel nodded toward the alien. Perhaps your luck had help. Before Saris could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lighting bathed the corridor as the outpost's AI announced, perimeter breach detected. Multiple hostile contacts approaching from Vector 9. All personnel to battle stations. Dr. Kavir looked up startled. We're under attack. The facility shuddered as the first impacts struck distant explosions, reverberating through metal and stone. Saris's neural comm activated with Captain Trevine's voice. All combat units deploy. Defense Protocol Zeta. This is not a drill. Saris turned to Dr. Kavir. Lock down this chamber. No one enters or exits until I return. To Rel, she added, stay with her. Continue your analysis. I need to know everything. She sprinted to the armory, mind racing. Enemy forces rarely attacked fortified coalition outposts directly. The cost in resources was too high for minimal strategic gain. Something had changed. Something had made this facility a priority target. Or someone. Fully armed and rejoining her unit in the main corridor, Saris received tactical updates through her neural interface. Enemy forces had breached the outer perimeter, employing some kind of concentrated energy weapon that cut through defensive barriers like they were tissue, not the usual tactics of the Pale Shields. Lieutenant Corso greeted her as she took position at a security checkpoint. They came out of nowhere. No warning from orbital scanners. Numbers, Saris asked, checking her weapon systems. Unknown. At least 3 strike teams, maybe more. They're moving with purpose, not random destruction. A surgical strike then, targeted. Saris felt a growing certainty about their objective. They're here for her, she said. The blue woman. Corso's expression revealed his thoughts before he could censor them. You think we should have eliminated her as ordered? I think we need to understand why she's worth all this, Saris countered. Hold position. Defend this corridor at all costs. I'm going to medical isolation. Before Corso could object, Saris was moving not toward the front lines where a commanding officer should be, but back toward the heart of the facility, where a mysterious alien lay dying. In that moment, she recognized that her priorities had fundamentally shifted, though she couldn't articulate why or when. The attack intensified. Through her neural comms, Saris heard reports of enemies breaching secondary checkpoints, moving with unnatural speed and precision. Coalition defenders falling back outmatched, despite their fortified positions. The facility's structural integrity warnings began to sound key support systems, damaged power fluctuations imminent. Saris reached the medical sector to find it in chaos. Emergency lights flickered as backup generators struggled to maintain power. Medical staff evacuated priority patients toward emergency bunkers deeper within the mountain. At the isolation chamber, the guards Trevine had posted lay dead, their weapons unfired. The door stood open. Inside, Dr. Kavir lay unconscious, or dead, beside overturned equipment. The examination table was empty, the alien woman gone. Archivist Rel sat propped against a wall, blood seeping from a wound in his shoulder. Rel, Saris, knelt beside him. "What happened? Where is she?" The elderly archivist coughed weakly. "Took her. White-masked soldiers. But not before she woke Lieutenant. Not before she spoke." "What did she say?" Saris demanded. "Your name." Rel's eyes focused on Saris with unexpected intensity. "She said your name, not your rank or designation. Alina. Like she knew you." The facility shuddered violently. Above them, support beams groaned as stress fractures spread through reinforced concrete. Saris's neural comm crackled with emergency evacuation orders. The outpost was compromised beyond recovery, all personnel directed to emergency extraction points. "Can you walk?" she asked Rel, helping him to his feet. "Go," he urged. "I'll only slow you down." The data, he pressed his datapad into her hands. "Everything I found. Patterns, correlations, questions you need to answer." Before Saris could argue, another explosion rocked the facility. Concrete dust rained from the ceiling as a massive support beam fractured. Saris looked up, just as it gave way, collapsing toward them, in what felt like slow motion. She pushed Rel aside, knowing she had no time to evade herself. This, finally, was how her improbable luck would end. The impact never came. Instead, a blur of motion. A cool body colliding with hers, propelling her clear of the falling debris. Saris tumbled across the floor disoriented, then looked up to see the blue woman standing where she had been, just as the massive beam crashed down. Time seemed to stop. The alien had returned not to escape, but to save her. Their eyes met across the ruined chamber, Saris's wide with shock, the alien's filled with a complex emotion Saris couldn't name. Then, the beam struck, pinning the blue woman beneath its crushing weight. "No!" Saris screamed, scrambling to her feet. The alien lay half-buried, blue skin, pale with shock, silvery fluid pooling beneath her crushed lower body. Still conscious, impossibly, her gaze fixed on Saris. Without thought for her own safety, Saris rushed to her, frantically trying to lift the beam. It wouldn't budge. "Help!" she shouted, though she knew no help would come. The facility was emptying, everyone racing for extraction points, before the entire structure collapsed. "Alina!" the alien whispered, her voice musical, despite the pain evident in her features. She reached up with a trembling hand to touch Saris's face. "You're safe." "Why?" Saris demanded, still struggling against the immovable weight. "Why did you come back? Why save me?" The woman's lips curved in a sad smile. "Always have." Understanding crashed over Saris like a wave. Not just this moment. Not just today. Always. The impossible escapes. The miraculous survivals. The feeling of being watched over. This woman, this enemy she had hunted, had been her guardian all along. Determination seized her. Saris would not leave her to die. Not after such a sacrifice. With renewed desperation, she searched the rubble for anything to use as a lever. Finding a length of metal conduit, she wedged it beneath the beam and pushed with all her strength. The beam shifted slightly enough for Saris to drag the alien free. Her lower body was crushed beyond repair. No medical intervention could save her now, not even if advanced facilities were available. They both knew it. Still, Saris lifted her as gently as possible, cradling her against her chest, as she had when they first met. "I'm getting you out," Saris promised, though the words rang hollow. The alien shook her head weakly. "Too late. Finish what I started." "What does that mean? Who are you?" Saris began, moving through the collapsing facility, the woman's weight negligible in her arms. Emergency evacuation routes flashed on her neural interface, but she ignored them, seeking instead a quiet place where they wouldn't be disturbed in these final moments. She found it in an abandoned auxiliary medical bay, untouched by the attack. Equipment still hummed with backup power, though no medical miracle could reverse the alien's injuries. Saris laid her on a clean surface, then pulled up a chair to sit beside her. Tell me, Saris pleaded. Tell me everything. The alien's breathing had grown labored, each word clearly an effort. Observer. Assigned. To study you. Instead, chose to protect. But why I'm your enemy? We've been at war for a decade. A look of profound sadness crossed the alien's features. Not my war. Not my enemy. She reached for Saris's hand, her fingers cool and delicate. Saw something in you. Something worth preserving. The facility trembled again, more violently. Warning klaxons indicated final structural failure imminent. They had minutes at most. I don't understand, Saris said, frustration mounting as precious seconds ticked away. All these years you've been following me, protecting me. Why not make contact? Why let me hunt your kind? Not hunt, my kind, the alien whispered. Hunt. Me. Only me. The revelation struck Saris like a physical blow. Every mission, every target, every enemy operative she had tracked and eliminated, she had been pursuing this woman. Only her. Always just missing her while the real quarry watched from the shadows, ensuring Saris's survival, even as Saris tried to end her life. I spent my whole life protecting you, the alien said, voice fading, and you were hunting me. Grief and guilt crashed together in Saris's chest, a tidal wave of emotion she had no defenses against. Tears streamed down her face, the first she had shed since childhood, since before the war had scoured away her humanity and replaced it with duty and precision. I didn't know, she whispered. How could I know? The alien's hand tightened briefly around hers. Not your fault. Deception. Necessary. Too many lives at stake. What lives? What are you talking about? But the alien's strength was fading rapidly. Her eyes, striking violet against blue skin, began to lose focus. Data. In drone. Truth about war. Why it started. Who benefits. Saris leaned closer, desperate to catch every word. Tell me your name. At least give me that. The alien seemed to rally briefly, focusing on Saris's face with sudden clarity. No translation, in your language. But you knew me once. Will. Again. Her body shuddered. The silvery fluid that served as her blood had nearly drained away completely. Death was moments away. Stay with me, Saris begged. Please, I need to understand. With what must have been her final reserves of strength, the alien pulled Saris closer. Find others, like me. Not enemies. Never were. Her voice dropped to a whisper only Saris could hear. War built on lies. You can end it. Then, with a soft exhale, the light faded from her eyes. Her hand went limp in Saris's grasp. Gone. Just like that, this being who had dedicated her existence to Saris's protection, without recognition or gratitude. This enemy, who was never truly an enemy. Saris sat motionless, still holding the alien's hand, as the facility crumbled around them. She should move, should evacuate before the entire structure collapsed. Her training demanded it. Her survival instincts screamed it. Yet, in that moment, survival seemed hollow. What was the point of enduring if everything she believed, everything she had fought for, was built on deception? If the enemy she had devoted her life to destroying had actually been her unseen guardian? A different kind of determination took hold. Not the mindless duty that had driven her for a decade, but something deeper. Something the alien had recognized in her, perhaps when she chose to protect rather than observe. The capacity to seek truth, regardless of cost. To remake herself in the face of shattering revelations. The facility gave a final, decisive shudder. Extraction time had passed. Anyone still inside was presumed lost. But Saris was not ready to be lost, not yet. Not until she uncovered the truth this woman had died to protect. She gently closed the alien's eyes, then removed a small shard of armor from the woman's wrist guard. It bore markings she couldn't decipher, save for one pattern that resembled her own initials. A token of connection, perhaps, or something more significant. Pocketing the shard, Saris lifted the alien's body once more. She would not leave her here to be buried in rubble, would not allow this final sacrifice to go unacknowledged. Using a combination of service tunnels and emergency passages, she navigated the dying facility. Fires blazed unchecked. Support systems failed in cascading sequence. The mountain itself seemed to be swallowing the outpost, reclaiming territory humans had briefly colonized. When Saris finally emerged into open air, the twin moons had set, leaving only stars to illuminate the desolation. The coalition forces had evacuated airlifts, carrying survivors to secondary bases across the sector. The enemy forces, if they had truly been enemies, had withdrawn as well, mission apparently accomplished despite the loss of their blue operative. Saris carried the alien's body to a small rise overlooking the former city. By dawn, patrols would return to assess damage and retrieve valuable technology. By then, she needed to be far away. She had deserted in heart, if not yet in official status. There could be no returning to the coalition, not after what she had learned. Not after what she had lost. She spent precious minutes constructing a simple pyre. The alien deserved a proper farewell, though Saris knew nothing of her culture's customs. As the first hints of dawn colored the eastern sky, she ignited the pyre with her side weapon's energy cell, watching as flames consumed the physical form of her guardian. "I didn't even know your name," she whispered to the rising smoke. "But I will carry your truth." Turning from the pyre, Saris removed her uniform jacket. The insignia of her rank and unit glittered in the firelight, symbols of a cause she could no longer blindly serve. She cast the jacket into the flames, watching as the synthetic material melted and burned. The armor shard from the alien's wrist, she kept securing it inside a hidden pocket of her undershirt. As the pyre burned to embers, Saris consulted Archivist Rel's datapad. It contained more than she had imagined, not just analyses of the drone and its flight patterns, but compiled anomalies stretching back to the war's beginning. Inconsistencies in official reports, statistical impossibilities in enemy behavior, redacted communications that Rel had partially recovered. Rel had been piecing together the puzzle for years, it seemed. The alien's arrival had simply provided the final confirmation he needed. There was a pattern to the war that made no logical sense, unless one assumed that both sides were being manipulated by an unseen third party. The data pointed to a specific location, an abandoned communications relay station at the far edge of the wasteland. Once a critical nexus for interplanetary transmissions, now a gutted shell avoided by both coalition and enemy forces. According to Rel's notes, unusual energy signatures had been detected there, intermittently for years, dismissed as equipment malfunctions or background radiation. Saris had her destination. She had her mission. Not ordered from above, but chosen by conscience, and guided by the sacrifice of someone who had seen value in her soul when Saris herself had forgotten it existed. She gathered minimal supplies, water purification tablets, emergency rations, portable solar charger for the datapad. The journey would be grueling. Hundreds of kilometers across barren wasteland, avoiding both coalition patrols and enemy scouts. No transport, no backup, no certainty of what she would find. The old Saris would have calculated the mission parameters and deemed it too risky. The lieutenant who served without question would have reported the alien encounter and followed orders to eliminate. But that woman had died in the collapsing facility, crushed beneath the same beam that took her guardian's life. What emerged was someone new, someone with purpose beyond obedience. As full dawn painted the desolation in harsh light, Saris began walking. The red dust of the wasteland swirled around her boots, the same color as the blood she had shed in service to what might have been a lie. Behind her, the burning outpost sent a column of black smoke into the sky, a funeral pyre for her former life, as much as for the alien who had protected her. Days became weeks as Saris traversed the wasteland, a solitary figure moving with purpose across a blighted landscape. She avoided settlements, scavenger camps, and military checkpoints, traveling by night when possible to minimize detection. When necessary, She traded small services for supplies repairs to failing equipment, brief protection against wasteland predators. Her Hunter Division training served her well, though now bent toward survival rather than killing. The armor shard became her talisman. In quiet moments, she would trace its intricate patterns, wondering about the civilization that had produced such artistry. Not once in 10 years of conflict had the Coalition revealed anything about enemy culture, art, or beliefs. Soldiers were taught that the pale shields were interchangeable proxies, disposable weapons in an incomprehensible alien arsenal. Yet the Blue Woman had been anything but disposable. She had been unique, intentional, devoted to a cause the Coalition would label as treason, protecting an enemy combatant, protecting Ceres. The communications relay appeared on the horizon on the 23rd day of her journey, a skeletal structure thrusting from the wasteland, like the rib cage of some enormous beast. Once it had connected human colonies across multiple systems. Now, it stood as monument to what had been lost, its dishes aimed at vacant skies. Ceres approached cautiously, scanning for signs of occupation or surveillance. Nothing registered on her tactical gear, but she trusted instinct over technology now. Something about the structure felt alive, despite its apparent abandonment. Energy traces, perhaps, as Rel had noted, or something more intangible. The main entrance had been sealed with military-grade barriers, but Ceres found a maintenance hatch left partially open, likely by scavengers seeking valuable components. She slipped inside, weapon ready, moving with practiced silence through darkened corridors. The interior was a study in ordered chaos. Equipment had been removed or destroyed during the facility's decommissioning, leaving empty brackets and severed cables. Yet certain sections appeared to have been restored or repurposed, with power flowing to systems that should have been long dead. Following the active power signatures, Ceres descended into the facility's lower levels. The air grew colder, recyclers humming with unexpected efficiency. Someone had restored life support recently, judging by the freshness of the filtered air. She found the source in what had once been the central processing chamber. Banks of improvised servers lined the walls, cobbled together from disparate technologies, both human and alien. At the center stood a makeshift transmitter, its antenna extending upward through a shaft cut into the ceiling, presumably reaching the main dish above. Ceres approached the transmitter, noting its unusual design. It didn't match Coalition military specifications, nor did it resemble the enemy technology she had encountered. This was something different, a hybrid perhaps, or something entirely new. A display screen flickered to life as she drew near, sensing her presence. Text scrolled across it in multiple languages, some human, others completely foreign. Among them, Coalition Standard English. Transmission: active signal. Strength nominal, recipients unknown. The message itself was simple, repeating on a continuous cycle. The war is manufactured, both sides manipulated. Seek truth beyond the battlefield. We wait at the convergence. Ceres stared at the words, recognition dawning. The message verified what the alien had tried to tell her, with her dying breath, what archivist Rel had pieced together from fragmented data. The war, 10 years of devastating conflict that had claimed billions of lives, was not what it appeared. She connected Rel's datapad to the transmitter, downloading the station's logs. The transmission had been active for nearly 3 years, broadcasting continuously on frequencies monitored by neither Coalition nor known enemy channels. Directed not at military installations or command centers, but at seemingly random coordinates throughout neighboring systems. Who would receive such a message? Who was meant to find this place? As if in answer, Ceres noticed a small storage unit beneath the transmitter. Inside lay items that made no immediate sense, a collection of armor shards, similar to the one she carried, each marked with different patterns. A star chart with regions highlighted in various colors, and a small holographic projector. Ceres activated the projector with tentative fingers. A 3-dimensional image formed before her, a star system she didn't recognize with one planet prominently marked. Coordinates scrolled beneath it, along with a single word, in Coalition Standard: convergence. This was it. The next breadcrumb on a trail she hadn't known existed until now. A destination beyond the wasteland, beyond the borders of the war zone. Perhaps even beyond coalition space entirely. How to reach it? Military transport was out of the question, now that she was effectively a deserter. Civilian ships rarely traveled interstellar distances anymore, the risks too great in contested regions. She would need to find alternative means, perhaps in the black markets of border settlements, where loyalty was purchased rather than pledged. But first, she had a task to complete, a memorial to erect, a truth to honor. Saris modified the transmitter, adding her own message to the broadcast cycle. Simple words that would reach unknown ears, yet convey what she had come to understand in the past weeks. Not all who hunt bear hatred. Some guardians wear no uniform. Then, she placed the alien's armor shard among its brothers in the storage unit. Whatever significance these tokens held, they belonged together, a collection of witnesses to sacrifices made in secret darkness. As dawn broke over the wasteland, Saris emerged from the relay station with renewed purpose. The coordinates from the hologram were committed to memory, the path forward uncertain but clear. She would find the convergence, whatever it might be, would seek the truth of the war and those who manufactured it, would honor the Blue Woman's sacrifice by completing what she had begun. The red sun climbed higher, casting Saris's shadow long across barren ground. In her mind's eye, she saw another shadow walking beside her, blue-skinned, violet-eyed, moving with the same determined stride. Not an enemy. Never an enemy. Something much more profound. A guardian who had recognized in Saris a potential worth protecting, even at the cost of her own life. "I don't know your name," Saris whispered to the empty air, "but I will carry your truth. I promise." With the rising sun warming her back, Lieutenant Alina Saris, no longer a hunter, but a seeker, walked into the wilderness of an uncertain future. Behind her lay duty, certainty, and the comfort of unquestioned orders. Before her stretched a path of discovery, of reckoning, of potential redemption. Ahead, somewhere beyond the horizon, waited answers to questions she was only beginning to formulate. Why had the war begun? Who profited from endless conflict? What connected her to a blue-skinned guardian who had sacrificed everything to keep her alive? And most importantly, how many others were out there on both sides of the artificial divide, asking the same questions? Saris adjusted her pack and lengthened her stride. The wasteland stretched boundless before her, harsh and unforgiving. But for the first time since the war began, she walked with a purpose entirely her own. Not to hunt, not to kill, but to understand, to remember, to honor. To find the truth, whatever the cost.